Welcome, listeners, to another episode of Shooting Rabbits in a Barrel, a podcast brought to you by Scarecrow Consultants. I'm joined today by Simon. Hello, Simon. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And you?
Oh, I'm very well, thank you. We've just met, so I will also introduce you for our listeners that you were an independent consultant and now you're retired and you're going on lots of different adventures while you've been doing this. Yeah, absolutely. Live your best life. So I'm sure that you've got lots of exciting stories to tell us. And so, to remind our listeners, the two questions that we ask on Shooting Rabbits are: what story would you like to share with us today? And what valuable lesson did you learn? So, Simon, welcome to Shooting Rabbits. And what story would you like to share with us today?
I'd like to share what happened to me about 10 years ago when I was asked if I'd be interested in helping Russia build their next generation nuclear power plants, conforming to Western safety standards. And I thought, do I want Russia to have another Chernobyl? No. Can I do something to help? Yes. I'll say yes. I will help them out. And so behind that is the fact that when they were looking at Western safety standards, they went to the IAEA, obviously, and they recommend, guess what? Systems engineering.
Hey!
As in ISO 15288. Oh, anyway, okay. We'll stick with that one. So the assignment was working in Russia, working for a company called Vinnyas. It's the Russian Institute for Nuclear Power Plant Operation. And they were developing part of the new pressurized water reactor called the TOI, T-O-I, which in Russian means digitized, paperless, if you like. Okay. So they were trying to get into the idea of paperless design, and also Western standards. And in the first few meetings, I found out that they worked in a very different culture to my previous projects. They got 4 top requirements, which was good. They wanted it to be stable in terms of critical impacts and natural disasters. They were thinking about Fukushima. They were thinking of Chernobyl. Then the next one was correspondence to the world accepted rules and regulations. In other words, they've got good standards. Russia's got good standards, but they've got nuclear reactors built to them which didn't sort of perform very well. So they accept that if they want to export this design, which they have done, they need to conform to those world standards. So those are sort of 2 top level requirements, which is good. But the best way I can illustrate the difference in culture is early on we had 3 misunderstandings on terminology, and that clearly to me showed that I needed to change where I was coming from. So I can best illustrate that difference by looking at those 3 engineering processes or words, terminologies that they didn't get. So how do you start with a brand new project, new assignment? Well, I like to start with the gap analysis. So I thought, we'll look at systems engineering processes. I'll base this gap analysis on something nice and simple, the 5-point Likert scale. Are you familiar with the Likert scale?
I am not.
Yes, you are. It's basically, do you agree strongly? Do you agree? Do you neither agree or disagree? Do you disagree? Do you disagree strongly? Those 5. That's what it is. Right. So we set them this little survey. So, for example, the estimates of the volume of work and cost of completing the project should be based on what needs to be done, right? In other words, the requirements. Do you strongly disagree, neither, agree or whatever? So that's your principle, your goal. But then you say, what about the estimates for the volume of work and size and cost with your current project? Are they based upon the needs? And guess what? They're not often. They're often just on, well, I'm just told what to do, or there's a time scale, or you have to get it done and budgets, whatever. So we set, and there was about 30 questions, all about basically systems engineering processes. Do you do them currently? do you think it's important that they're done? So we sent it all off. We got lots of responses back. And when we got them back, only 3 of the categories had actually been used. So we got our best English speaking engineer along. We said, look, it seems to us there's a misunderstanding here, because people have responded, but they either strongly disagree, or agree. They haven't used the neither or the strong. Of course. Simon, what do you think? Well, okay, well, you haven't used strongly agree. Why? Well, if you agree, end of. No stronger. Okay. No, agree. Okay, fine, that's it. You've got neither, in the middle, neither disagree. Oh, you have to agree or disagree. Not in the middle. Okay, fine. So agree means agree, and that's it. But you've got disagree. Oh, yes, you can disagree. And you can strongly disagree. Yes, we strongly disagree as well. So that's all they used, those 3. Now, you see, I had thought Western European, the 5, how many surveys have we done like that? Loads.
Yeah.
And it didn't translate into the way they do things. If you agree, yes or no. You can disagree and strongly disagree. So that's the way they did it. So this was a very sort of black and white way of dealing with issues, which is interesting. A little bit of a different culture. We try to be nuanced. Whether that's good or bad, I'll leave it to people to make their own decision. So that was the survey. You don't use 5, you just use the 3. That's okay. So we then started discussing, or rather they asked, they say, what do you do for us? Okay. So let's explain how we would normally.
No, oh, we've lost Simon. Hang on 1 second, listeners. Okay, we're back.
Sorry about that. Anyway, I was going to explain the second misunderstanding, which happened when they asked us what we could do. What do you do for us? Okay, so we said, we're going to start with some training. Training, good. Yes, okay, that's good. And then I said, well, we're then going to move on to do some coaching and mentoring. Oh, they said. Training, we understand. What is this coaching? What is mentor? Okay, so think about football, I said. The teams train during the week. Yes, that's good. Training, good. Okay, good. But on the match on Saturday, the coach stands on the touchline and coaches the players, helping them to solve real-time problems and advising on tactics. And up in the stand, we have what we call the director of football. He's got this overview and understands the strategy, can see weaknesses, give advice on how to play the game. So we'll start with some training, and then we'll stand back and we'll do some coaching as people actually do things. And then later on, we'll stand further back and we'll look at mentoring, looking at how things can be improved, any weaknesses. Niet. Well, no mentor, no coaching, just train and do. So we explored this a bit more, and it's to do with their education. So if you want to be a nuclear engineer, it takes 6 years at university, 6 years, and that qualifies you for an entry-level position, such as maintaining a nuclear plant, not developing new stuff, okay? So their mentality was, you train, and then when you go into the job, you can do it. Now, my experience is that's not what happens in the areas I've worked on. Maybe I haven't worked in the right areas, but normally you get a fresh grad and you say, right, forget everything at university. This is how we're really going to
relearn.
Do it. Yeah, really, okay. But no, that's very much their idea, which meant their training budgets were some of the biggest training budgets I've ever seen in my life, which is great for us because we were there for going in and out for about 18 months, training. Very much with the emphasis on doing. And again, it was a bit like this black and white. The black and white with agree or disagree, that's it. This is train, then do. So that was, again, an insight that I had. And the third thing that happened, the third misunderstanding, was when we started looking at processes. They said, what is the basic set of processes? We've got all these 15 to 88 processes. What are the ones we actually need to put in place? So I went to my CMMI training, the level 1 processes, and we started explaining, you're going to start off with, guess what, requirements, definition and requirements management, etc. And then we were going round about change management, got to have that in. And then we had this plans, and then plans fed into monitor and control. What is monitor? Okay. Another analogy. Let's think of a ship. So in a ship, you've got, for example, a lookout at the very front, and you've got the helmsman steering. Okay, so they're looking out for icebergs and stuff like that. They see a problem, they call back to the helmsman, and the helmsman will take appropriate action to steer, control out the way. Niet. No monitor, just control. One man responsible. Eventually, this was a big sticking point. Eventually, we got it to assess and control, because that's the one person. But that's very much how their design labs work. You know, the airplanes, the MiGs or Sukhoi. These are individuals. These are individual people. They are the ones in control. Yes, control. Yeah, assess, but we want control. And again, it's this black and white nature. So these were the three sort of things I learnt there and then, which was unique about Russian atomic engineering. But I guess looking back, and I've been very fortunate that I've worked in defence, air, sea, land, medical, nuclear. Did some work with HMRC on PAYE, VAT and tax credits. I worked in Scandinavia, USA, South Africa, Australia, Russia, China. They've all got their cultures. And I've only been really successful when I have adapted to their culture. All right. Now, bringing in something like 1582 is going to change the way you're going to do things in the future. But in the beginning, you're not going to make changes overnight. You've got to understand the culture. I'm answering your second question. Sorry about that.
No, go ahead, please.
Because you told me what the second question was. And so that's what I would say is be sensitive, learn that culture. And that culture applies to companies as well. I've worked for lots of different companies. They have an engineering culture. You need to understand that culture before you try and make any improvements in the way they do things, because otherwise, well, basically you'll fail, and it takes time. Have you found that at all in any of your assignments?
Yes, absolutely. And my follow-up question or comment really was it's like shouting at a brick wall if you don't try and engage with the culture of the project, the team, when you go in. I think with systems engineering, sometimes it's already an uphill struggle trying to get people to follow these processes, to do things in this certain way, to go back over their requirements that they might think are amazing, which I'm sorry to tell you are not. Like, you know, and you have to be so mindful of what you're doing and how you're engaging. That yes, no, I have absolutely found it, and I will do the same as you. As go in, and the first couple of weeks I will spend trying to understand the team, where they're at, what they already think about systems engineering, where are they going to likely to be the problems. Yes, great. Thank you so much, Simon. That was really interesting. I think lesson learned is everybody entering projects, cultures, different countries, assess, adapt. And this is what all makes us, this is why travel is great, isn't it? You expand the horizons. Just because you call it a jumper, somebody else calls it a sweater, like all these things. Open our minds. So great. Thank you so much, Simon, for coming on to Shooting Rabbits. It's been great to have you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And listeners, if you would also like to come and share your story on shooting rabbits in a barrel, please get in touch with us at inquiries@scarecrowconsultants.co.uk, and we'll see you again next time.